Judges chapter 2, verse 1. The angel of the Lord went up from Gilgal to Bokim and said to the Israelites, I brought you out of Egypt into this land that I swore to give your ancestors, and I said I will never break my covenant with you. Verse 2. But for your part, you were not to make any covenant with the people living in this land. Instead, you were to destroy their altars, but you disobeyed my command. Why did you do this? Verse 3. So now I declare that I will no longer drive out the people living in your land. They will be a thorns in your sight, and their gods will be a constant temptation to you. Verse 4. When the angel of the Lord finished speaking to all the Israelites, the people wept loudly. Verse 5. So they called the place Bokim, which means weeping, and they offered sacrifices there to the Lord. Verse 6. After Joshua sent the people away, each of the tribes left to take possession of the land allotted to them. Verse 7. And the Israelites served the Lord throughout the lifetime of Joshua and the leaders who outlived him, those who had seen all the great things the Lord had done for Israel. Verse 8. Joshua son of Nun, the servant of the Lord, died at the age of 110. Verse 9. When they buried him in the land he had been allocated, at Timnath-Serah, in the hill country of Ephraim, north of Mount Gash. Verse 10. After that the generation died, another generation grew up, who did not acknowledge the Lord or remember the mighty things he had done for Israel. Verse 11. The Israelites did evil in the Lord's sight and served the images of Baal. Verse 12. They abandoned the Lord, the God of their ancestors, who had brought them out of Egypt. They went after other gods, worshipping the gods of the people around them, and they angered the Lord. Verse 13. They abandoned the Lord to serve Baal and the images of Ashtaroth. Verse 14. This made the Lord burn with anger against Israel, so he handed them over to raiders who stole their possession. He turned them over to their enemies all around, and they were no longer able to resist them. Verse 15. Every time Israel went out to battle, the Lord fought against them, causing them to be defeated, just as he had warned. And the people were in great distress. Verse 16. Then the Lord raised up judges to rescue the Israelites from their attackers. Verse 17. Yet Israel did not listen to the judges, but prostituted themselves for worshipping other gods. How quickly they turned away from the path of their ancestors, who had walked in obedience to the Lord's command. Verse 18. Whenever the Lord raised up a judge over Israel, he was with the judge and rescued the people from their enemies throughout the judge's lifetime. For the Lord took pity on his people, who were burdened by oppression and suffering. Verse 19. But when the judge died, the people returned to their corrupt ways, behaving worse than those who lived before them. They went after other gods, serving and worshipping them, and they refused to give up their evil practices and stubborn ways. Verse 20. So the Lord burned with anger against Israel. He said, because these people have violated my covenant, which I made with their ancestors, and have ignored my commands. Verse 21. I will no longer drive out the nations that Joshua left unconquered when he died. Verse 22. I did this to test Israel, to see whether or not they will follow the ways of the Lord as their ancestors did. Verse 23. That is why the Lord left those nations in place. He did not quickly drive them out or allow Joshua to conquer them all. Amen.